seems that romance is one of the most ubiquitous genres in all of anime. We like to meme about isekai and all, but if you step back, it seems that romance anime has been there since forever, and it really won't be going anywhere. It's one of the hallmark genres of anime, and you seem to get multiples of them every season. Of course, being such a widespread genre, you get an entire spectrum of subgenres, from rom-com harems to dramatic romances that will tug at your heartstrings. Quality itself can have insane variance. You have some of the legendary titles in this genre, and you have literal seasonal filler that come and go. Today, I'll be looking back at the past decade to do another decade in review look at what I think are the best romance titles to have come out in the past 10 years. While I don't watch every anime and will inevitably miss some bangers, I still do my best to point out some of the notables that the anime industry has gifted hopeful romantics. Just like my other decade in review video on action anime, I'll be excluding sequels for this list as I scour the anime world for the best ones per year, using a combination of how much I enjoyed it, how good it is, and how easily recommendable it is to someone who hasn't watched anime. On the other hand, movies are a go. Strap yourselves in and let's take another deep dive into another past decade of anime. 2011. Rom-coms featuring teenagers never really go out of favour. It's the genre that I feel will be here to stay for good, in addition to battle shonen. Isekai, it feels like it's reaching that point as well, but I guess we'll have to wait a few more years, lest my comments age poorly. After all, that's what people were saying about action harems right around this period of history, 2011. With that being said, 2011 had a pretty solid roster of rom-coms if I recall correctly. It may not look like a rom-com at first glance, but I very much enjoyed You and Me. The promo art reminds me a bit of daily lives of high school boys, which got me into trying it out, something that I didn't regret. Haganai and Mayo Chiki also came out here. Are they fan service laden? Yes sir. Are they entertaining? Hell yeah. I enjoyed both of these titles, with the former ending up being far more popular. Unfortunately, I think the veteran fans now remember it more for the shitstorm the novel ending caused. Working is also another chill and enjoyable rom-com for you to watch. However, my favourite romance that came out in 2011 is not a series, but a movie. Hotarubi no Mori is a short but sweet movie that really brought out the spectrum of feelings associated with love born of a fated meeting. It's a very emotional film that speaks to the joys and sadness of love and separation. I wouldn't say it's the best movie ever, but among the ones with romance as the primary genre, I seriously put it as a contender to be one of the most emotional ones. 2012. 2012 was an eventful year for the world, and the same can be said for the anime industry. Anecdotal, I know, but this seems to be the year when anime started to break into the mainstream. It's in this weird limbo between the niche hobby that geeks appreciate and a regular in streaming platforms and classroom discussions. Now, while everyone's eyes were on the action titles, 2012 had low-key one of the better years for romance anime early on in the decade. Romance anime that captured the joys of youth and school life were aplenty, and I'm going to be forced to just run some of my favourite down because of how many there are. Little Busters, My Little Monster, Sakurasou, Chuunibyou, Kokoro Connect. I can't even pick my favourite amongst all of these, but each of them brings with it a new flavour to the school life romance that you should probably take a look at all of them, even just for a little bit. Zombie flicks were also kind of the in thing at this point, so anime of course had no problem joining the craze with Sankarea. It's a very funny take on the rom-com genre, and I genuinely had a blast watching this mixture of horror, ecchi, and rom-com. For this year though, I give the title of Best Romance Anime to Kids on the Slope. When one thinks of romance and anime, one almost always gravitates to the school life ones or the ecchi ones. Now, that's understandable, but in between those shows, in the saturated subgenres, you have this underrated gem, a true coming-of-age story that heavily focuses on character drama and development. It's one of the shows that are intended for the fans who like more mature takes and a serious plot. It's not as heavy as I may have made it seem though, so it should be accessible even to the casual anime fan. 2013. Alright, let me get this one out of the way. 2013 is the year one of my absolute favourite romance anime made its debut. I'm talking about Snafu. I was in college at that time, and the story of antisocial jerks slowly having to learn to open up and explore the beauty of relationships really struck me hard. The series may have recently concluded in anime form, but I'll always remember how big of an impact Hachiman, Yukino, and Yui had in my college years. In my biased take, I put Oregairu as my romance anime of the year for 2013. However, putting aside biases, I still think it's a damn good show. On one hand, it may seem very pretentious, but on the other hand, those who don't mind the edginess of the start would find themselves themselves rewarded with a show that takes them on a roller coaster of emotions. I feel that 2013 is a lot less stacked in terms of primarily romance anime compared to 2012. You've got Golden Time, a show that at the time was pretty unique for featuring more mature characters. A Lull in the Sea is the mandatory PA Works title about relationships and character drama. And then there are the more fantasy action-oriented ones. I already talked about Data Live in passing in the action anime video, but 2013 also brought us The Devil is a Part-Timer. Amazing reverse isekai title, and it's so good that fans have been clamoring for a second season for years on end. Well, the meme is dead a decade later, and now only No Game No Life is left in the second season limbo. Wanting a film instead? Make you pick between Garden of Words or The Wind Rises. 2014. What I remember the most about 2014, at least locally speaking, is the waifu wars. One with such intensity like no other, except maybe the EVA waifu wars. The culprit? Nisekoi, of course. I don't know what it was with this title that sparked such a huge following for either Chitoge, Onodera or Marika to spark such a discussion, but it's there, and at least for me, Nisekoi's waifu wars will always be a footnote in the history of my anime journey. As a show though, Nisekoi is a really entertaining watch in its own right. I wonder whose team you're on if you watch the series, and make sure to leave your comments about that one down below. Another one of my favourite rom-coms which aired this year was Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun. It's a really entertaining comedy that let me relax a lot during this era, and I found myself empathizing a lot with the characters. They're all vibrant, charismatic and relatable. In a bid to prove that VN adaptations aren't dying, one of the better ones got its start this year. I'm talking about Fruit of Grisaia. With how many Grisaia titles have come out since then, it could be easy to lose track of them all, but the one that started it all debuted in 2014. Blue Spring Ride is also a good romance that started airing this year. You can enjoy it both as an anime series or a live-action title, and either worked for me. Speaking of anime that also ended up having a live-action movie, I bring you my pick for 2014. Your Lie in April. It's one of the anime titles from this era that have stood the test of time and is still a hot topic for recommendations almost a decade later, and it's pretty easy to see why. Your Lie in April starts off pretty light-hearted, but escalates and grips us by the heart the longer it goes on. Hidden beneath the whimsical colour palettes and the rom-com staples is one of the most powerful series about tragedy and recovery. 2015. 2015's yet another memorable year for me. After all, this was the year the anime world first got a taste of a favourite title of mine alongside Snafu, Saekano. Being an aspiring creator myself, Saekano gripped me quickly with its premise, and I immensely adore the overall aesthetics of the thing. I like the colours, the overall feel of it, and the girls. Upon finishing the movie that wraps up the series a year ago, I felt like I just said goodbye to such a crucial part of my past. That's how much Gato and the gang meant to me. But biases won't make a show romance anime of the year. Unfortunately, Saekano is also filled with the fan service tropes that while I adore, normies wouldn't like, and thus give the show a hit in terms of accessibility. Still, Saekano's fan service is nothing compared to Prison School, another show that I really liked. While it's not traditionally defined as a rom-com, Prison School has no shortage of funny moments, and the romance pinched between its gratuitous fan service and over-the-top craziness is an oft underrated aspect of it. If you're up for something more wholesome, however, Ore Monogatari is an inspirational title that aired this year. I really recommend checking this one out for its rather fresh premise and engaging character dynamics. I'm also sure it inspired a lot of aspiring romantics around this time, as much as Plastic Memories made people shed a few tears with its premise of finding peace in the midst of loss. Something inspirational and dramatic that contains some lessons that we can use in life, a title that's largely recommendable to even non-anime fans. Sounds like the qualifications for Romance of the Year, right? You want to know what ticks those boxes? Anthem of the Heart. For me, it's one of the most underrated anime movies out there. It's got a very powerful message about opening up and accepting people. However, no one seems to be talking about this Mari Okada teen drama at all, which I find a bit regretful for how good it is relative to its popularity. Will an in-or-in character actually win a romance anime? Watch the movie to find out. Halfway through the list, and have you been enjoying it? If so, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It doesn't take too long, but it will help the channel and make me so happy to have your support. Now, let's get back to the show. 2016. In a surprising twist, 2016 ended up being a down year for romance anime. Still, those titles that I remember are all quality titles, I'd say. Quality over quantity. Also, in a stroke of irony, All 3 titles that I remember all have to do with some kind of time travel shenanigans. With Erased and ReZero also starting this year, is this the year of the time travel trend or what? Orange and ReLife are both quality watches. Taking the theme of escaping from an undesirable future and fixing the present, the two veer off in different directions. However, both of them come up with their individual unique narratives and both captivated audiences around the world at this time. Despite that, none of them can compare to the storm that swept through the anime world that is Your Name, my winner for this year. We all know of the cultural impact that stuff like Attack on Titan, Sword Art Online, Demon Slayer and One Punch Man had in the mainstream sphere. But what about Your Name? It was a movie that, while it didn't come entirely out of nowhere, had unprecedented impact on the world, enough to match or even outperform Ghibli stuff it seems. Your Name fever gripped the world around this time with its astonishingly beautiful visuals, immersive story about romance and love, and very impactful ending. It is the anime phenomenon of the year, and there's no question it's romance anime of the year. No, a silent voice? Well, I feel that it suits drama more. Spoilers for a future list maybe? 2017. For 2017, I'll remember it as the year of polarizing shows taking the forefront in the genre. It's no shocker that Eromanga-sensei has quite a reputation for its themes and content. It's also no shocker that a title that decides to twist the supposed standards of love and deal with the less glamorous and more rotten part of it, Scum's Wish, also had the mixed reception. Still, the two titles enjoyed decent popularity, and they definitively made enough of an impact to be in the footnotes of a look back in history. Welcome to the Ballroom also engaged me enough despite having little expertise on the topic. It's surprisingly entertaining for someone like me who knew little about the topic, so I think that those who have even the slightest interest in ballroom dancing would find this show to their fancy. Surprisingly, none of those is romance anime of the year. For all the unique premises they have, I still think they fall a bit short against my pick, Tsuki ga Kirei. In contrast, Tsuki ga Kirei is a title that seems to revel in its simplicity. There's no super unique premise to build on, but in terms of execution, the show is pretty good. Beneath its simplicity, it provides a pretty honest and genuine take on adolescent romance. It's more muted compared to a lot of its peers, and it doesn't stand out, but don't make that deter you from watching this hidden gem of a romance. 2018. Now, here's a year that I have fond memories of. If you've been following the channel, it's no secret that I love both Boarding School Juliet and Takagi-san, the former being one of the most entertaining retreads on the classic Romeo and Juliet formula for me, and the latter having some of my favourite character interactions. I just can't get enough of Takagi and Nishikata's antics, and I'm super happy to know that we'll be getting more anime and a movie of them soon. Bunny Girl Senpai also started airing this year. It became one of the big hits in the year, and being a Monogatari fan, I just had to check it out. It never got to the heights Monogatari did, but it's way above average for the genre, and if you enjoyed it, you should also check out its movie. For something more relatable to the everyday anime fan, however, I bring to you Wotakoi. What happens when adult geeks try to play the very precarious game of love? Wotakoi presents a hilarious yet realistic take on the subject. As much as I like all of those, however, they mostly work by relying on the suspension of disbelief that anime has, or a somewhat good knowledge and acceptance of anime tropes and geek culture, especially for something like Wotakoi or Bunny Girl. If there's one thing that's just as good that I can also recommend to everyone, I would pick I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. Strange title aside, this movie has it all for a romantic anime. It seems like the standard polar opposites attract story, and by all means it is super original, but boy do I love it. It shouldn't surprise you to know that the movie is a ride that will leave your emotions in shambles, but I especially appreciated the powerful message it brings to the table. It hits really hard despite it having no reason to, due to the supposed predictability its premise brings, and it further proves my belief that when looking at anime, it's execution that matters the most. 2019. All hail Kaguya-sama. I don't think that a lot will disagree if I just pen in Kaguya-sama as the romance anime of 2019, right? It's only one of the most popular anime to come out in the recent years after all. Popularity aside though, the show is actually a real joy to watch. I've seen a lot of people call it the death note of romance anime, and while I think that's overblowing it a little bit, Kaguya-sama never ceased to entertain me with its mental gymnastics and large cast of characters who all synergize well with each other. It does have some fan service which can make it less palatable to the general audience, but it never bothered me much. And not just in an I'm used to ecchi anime way. It really is mild enough, especially when you put it side by side with another 2019 show, Domestic Girlfriend. Yep, this controversy magnet debuted this year, and while reception has been polarized, the fact that there's a shitstorm over the title means that it's something we have to take note of. Harem rom-coms aren't dying off, and we have Quintessential Quintuplets as a testament to that. It's simple, fun, and easy to follow. If you think picking your team in the previous harem rom-coms like Nisekoi is hard, how about a roster of 5 girls? Veteran anime fans will be pleased to know that a remake of Fruits Basket happened in 2019 as well, and I think it's a remake that ends up being a lot better than the original anime. On the movie side of things though, Weathering with You didn't quite make the impact that Your Name did, but it's still a pretty good watch that deals with some of the dilemmas love-struck teens could find themselves in. 2020. Here we go with the year of delays and cancellations. As cursed of a year 2020 was, the anime industry did one hell of a job recovering and finishing up a lot of popular series and adding sequels to them. I think this topic was better discussed in my action anime list, but the romance anime scene this year wasn't too shabby. The lineup is pretty thin if you discount sequels, but we did have the popular reverse harem My Next Life as a Villainess. It's a title that unleashed the villainess subgenre to the mainstream consciousness, and it's one of the better ones in that same pool. If you're up for a traditional harem, Rent a Girlfriend could be your jam. Reception has been mixed primarily because of the main character, but we mostly watch these shows for the girls, right? They are a bunch of fun if you're to ask me. Tonikaku Kawaii also takes love further and proceeds to the marriage side of things. Now that's something you don't see every day. For something even more off the left field, Science Fell in Love, So I Tried to Prove It decides that talking about romance through the lens of science is the way to go. My pick for this year though is an anime movie. Nope, it's not a Whisker Away, although that movie is something that I would recommend for the family to enjoy over a weekend. My pick is Jose, the Tiger, and the Fish. I feel that its themes are a tad bit stronger as it tackles the idea of dreams and desires in spite of disabilities. It has a strong narrative about widening your horizons and growing up. While some of the moments have been criticized for being cliche, I don't think that it's to the detriment of the show, not when everything else has been executed well enough to tug at my heartstrings and for me to sympathize so much with the characters. 2021. Now that we've reached the present, any recommendations popping up in your mind already? This year's been a wild ride for romance anime, and not always for the best reasons. Nagatoro-san and Remake Our Life have their share of fans and detractors. The first one is basically a way meaner version of Takagi-san. Another one, Higehiro, also dealt with elements that some people might find unsettling. Still, I personally like the series, and I think that it's a touching story of growth and acceptance. I really like it, and I hope that more people can set aside their disdain for the series and look at it solely for the message and values that it has. It's all fiction anyway. If we were to take away the age gap between the two protagonists, I'm sure that the anime would have been a lot better received. We still have a season to go, so things could change, but for now, I've got my sights set on Horimiya as the romance anime of the year. I feel that I've said it far more times than I would have liked already, but Horimiya is yet again one of those shows that, despite having a plain premise, gave me loads of enjoyment watching it. The character dynamics are one thing, but I like how even the side characters in the story manage to be engaging. It's not the most unique romance title out there, but it is by far the most engaging one amongst the 2021 titles I've mentioned, and it's the one that I could easily recommend to non-anime fans. And with that, we end the list. Which among the years is your favourite in terms of romance anime? Is there anything notable that I missed? Don't forget to tell me in the comment section below. If you're up for more movies like this, tell me by supporting the channel. Your comments and likes totally help, but you can also take a step further and check out channel memberships and Patreon. Both are available in the description box, and I'd be glad if you could check them out. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you had a great time taking a look back at history, and I'll see you again.